So this is an interview with Clare Singleton. This is the owner and proprietor of the Granary Spa. She took her staff from 16 to 8 during the pandemic. She had to close her business twice, and she went from being a business owner to imparting who she really is into the business, with personal notes to customers, newsletters imparting tips, even sharing her own personal journal entries, connecting with authenticity and openness. She shares the strengths of her new team. She shares the staff wellbeing tips she used to keep them going now and beyond. And she is a business owner who has prioritised self-care and has actually managed to find balance. Okay, so this is an amazing conversation with Clare Singleton. She's the owner of the Granary Spa, a lifelong dream to create a holistic retreat. This is out in Ashford in the Kent countryside. Now she's got a team who have made it their aim to make spa treatments accessible to anyone, even during cancer, through bereavement and of course stress. It's high on our list at the moment. So part of the ethos is to support the local community and a variety of charities. Now, when Clare met, we were definitely fed off each other's positivity. Lots of positive quotes, and I would say that we bounced ideas off each other in terms of overcoming problems. So I'm going to get straight into the questions, Clare, if that's okay.
Yes,
and
cool.
I'd love to ask you, what are your timeless quotes that just have always been with you and that you'll never let go of, and why?
Well, there's loads of quotes. In fact, I've just shown you pre this interview a book of daily quotes. So there's hundreds in there. But a while ago in the first lockdown, you sent me this, which is on my computer. Be a warrior, not a worrier. And you can see actually how dog-eared it is now. Oh yeah. And I found you the book. Yeah. And I think I've moved house. It was stuck on the wall during the first lockdown. Now I'm in a different house, but it's now on my computer. So it's got a bit of blue tack on it. And yeah, very dog-eared now. And then at the end of the night, it just gets put in the computer. But that means a lot, because I think it's such a true quote that actually, why do we worry so much about absolutely nothing? Why can't we be warriors? And sometimes there's days when maybe we are worrying, and I look at this and I think, no, warrior, come on. so this probably for me, the gift from you, which came at the right time, and I think will be my favourite quote forever now. So yeah, it's very special.
Strengthening, isn't it? It's the strengthening quality of those words. Yes. It's not saying, don't worry at all. It's just saying we can worry, but we can also become strong again. And I think that's the beautiful thing I love about that quote. And is there any words that kind of, like your day-to-day words, are there certain words that really get you into the zone of feeling, calm and resilient?
I think my little stones, which again I've just showed you, I've got, I don't know how many, 20 stones, and every day I'll pick one of those stones. No, won't look at it, and that'll random stones, and that will be the focus of my day as well. So alongside lots of other things, but yeah.
Amazing. So can I dip into, if we put some focus on the Granary Spa, this beautiful space that you have, surrounded by countryside. What do you think? I mean, this can be relevant, of course, to the lockdown or, outside of that, but what are your two biggest problems that you've ever faced and that you found solutions to?
I think probably the lockdown was the biggest challenge for me ever in my business, because it's taken out of your hands and someone has said to you to shut the door of your business, which is both emotional and dramatic from lots of different angles. So you've got the team that are sent home, you've got customers that can't come in, you've got, are you going to come back to a business? There's an awful lot of fear. So yeah, it was a massive problem, the lockdown. And I think really got me thinking about lots of different things, how to overcome that. And there was some big things that had to be done during that time to survive. So yes, that was probably my biggest challenge. And the second one would have been the restructure of the business, knowing that, you've mentioned it's a beautiful area, it's a beautiful converted farm, but we couldn't trade in the same way. So we had to restructure, and that was painful. And again, quite dramatic. We halved our team. So from 16 to 8, you know. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are probably my 2 biggest challenges that we've overcome.
So how do you think, you know, sort of, you know, coming into something, you know, that came as such a sort of, you know, blindsided moment of you have to close the doors of your business? What do you remember what the first thing you did was to face
cry.
that?
To be honest, cry.
To let it release. Yeah, sure.
I think it was for me, I'm still feeling emotional about it now. I think it's grief, you know, because you are, you know, it's a business, a small business is your heart, is your soul. It's not just, and I actually think my team were very much like that. They just went into amazing overdrive of, you know, we're going to do this, we're going to get through it. And of course, when the staff are furloughed, they are not allowed to do anything. And that's really hard for them because we do everything together. So we don't have I'm a director and you're a member of my team.
It's a family, isn't it? For sure.
It is a family. You know, we've got such an amazing skill set there. You know, we've got a spa manager that's great on Excel. We've got another spa manager that's great on, you know, things like fixing things. We've got the younger team members that are great on the computer. So, you know, when there's a problem, it's something we solve together. So I think that aloneness was very, very difficult. So yeah, it's I think definitely grief, Claire. And then
you're really not on your own there. And in fact, this is partly why we're having this conversation today. You know, I have a long career in the industry alongside you, and I could see, you know, friend after friend after friend having to close their doors. And what struck me was the emotion, was like you say, the grief. And I believe that a lot of it is down to the fact that suddenly there was this whole community of customers, of clients that you couldn't see, and you know how important it is for them to come to you.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, we've got a lady who's blind, and you know, she's got some medical issues, and that, I think, you know, when the government were calling our industry certain names that just were highly inappropriate. You know, we are not massage parlors or nail bars. I mean, yes, you know, there are elements of nails and massage, but that is not what we are. We're so much more than that. Wellness is a huge part of people's lives now. And maybe they're not being touched by anyone, and actually you're taking that away. So on the return, although I was very nervous, it was incredible the response we have. And there are people that still haven't come back because they're shielding. But
sure.
You know, our top, probably oldest customers had no fear. Yeah. They were back in the door, the first through the door. You know, a gentleman who is very, very old, who sees Shah every week. Yeah, he was back through the door, no hesitation. So yeah, it's quite interesting.
You would assume that as soon as the doors open, some of those would come back, but actually, yeah, there's a whole other aspect to it of fear that we have to, you know, reassure that you've gone.
And people are still fearful, Claire. You know, our age group are still fearful, and I get a phone call to say the numbers are creeping up, I'm cancelling. But the size of the business now is where we need to be, and that's great. So we're still able to function, we're still able to serve that community, but just in a different way.
Amazing. Yeah. You're doing an incredible job looking after, you know, in the way that you are. And I know we're going to get to some of those ways that you're supporting, you know, that community, you know, whether your doors are open or not. So I just want to dip into your, in what I would describe as an incredible authenticity and openness. And when I watch you on social media, when I see you, you know, converse with your community, it's literally like you're in my living room. It's a really lovely feeling. You show up consistently. But can I ask what you actually hope to impart when you communicate to your audience? You know, I know that you have lots of, you know, beautiful things. You know, you flick through that beautiful quote book. You sometimes share your journals. You ask questions. You have a little giggle. You know, you have a few IT hiccups occasionally. You know, and you're really just really open. But what do you really hope? Why do you do them, I guess, is the question.
I think really I changed an awful lot during lockdown, Claire. So previously 16 staff, it was a big operation to run. There was a porter cabin, which you've been in with me. We'd have meetings. It was a bit of a wheel to a certain extent. And I think I went from being a sole trader on my own and really being close to customers. And then life experiences change that. And I think we're taught to grow, grow, grow. And then all of a sudden lockdown hit. And I think I became who I am. This sounds a very odd thing to say, but I was always who I am. But I think I got caught up a little bit along the way. So one of my customers, the guy again, the more mature guy, he said, I didn't know that about you, Claire. I'm really shocked. So I think the real Claire covered herself up in running a business, where actually now I've uncovered me, which is so much nicer. So actually our customers are exposed to who I really am. And that has changed things, Claire, for me and for them. So I write to them every week. And what do I write about and why do I write, you're asking? So I write about how I'm feeling and what my journey is, in the hope that that's going to resonate with some of them, and it massively does, which has been a really interesting experience, because when I first started writing them every week, I used to think, gosh, what am I going to say and what pictures am I going to put in? And now it's very basic. It's you know, and actually sometimes I'll just hit on our email and just write what's happened. For instance, I bought myself some flowers the other week, and I thought, you know what, I love buying flowers. I've always waited for people to send me flowers, but actually, why don't we buy our own flowers? So I just posted that. You know, I've just got myself some flowers. Do you wait for someone to send you flowers, or why don't you buy your own? And that really resonated with lots of people. So I think it's about connecting, being authentic, trying to share what I've gone through, my journey, whether that's grief, whether that's stress, whether that's challenges with work, isolation, all of those things that us human beings are all experiencing, and share some of that and hope that it is helping someone else that's in the same situation, because we're all in that situation together.
Yeah, and you were open to evolving. That's what really came across to me. You know, how you didn't assume how people were feeling through this time. I always felt that you shared and you invited and were open to see how it was also playing out for other people. You never assumed.
Because there's people that are still working, Claire. So you know, there's people that are isolated at home. There's people that are shielding. There's so many different stories out there. But fundamentally, as human beings, we are all vulnerable. And actually, I think once we're all honest about that, then we can maybe reach out and help others. So I think the objective is to help other people going through whatever's going on in their life. And I've continued it when we were open again. And yeah, I think it's something I will continue to do. I don't want to disconnect.
Community news. They have those personal letters to individual clients.
Yes, it is very personal. One lady has written back, her husband's got dementia. She's trying to care for him. And she says she puts the newsletters in a folder, and when she's feeling low, she'll go back and read them. And, you know, that's very, very powerful. So if I'm making a difference to someone else, it's 6 o'clock on a Monday morning, it comes out. If that starts their week, if it gives them some focus, and you know, that's amazing. So I'm really enjoying that.
It's a good blend, isn't it? You've got the cathartic qualities of you writing it, that makes you feel, but you know, equally it's having an impact on the reader as well. So definitely. I'm a huge fan of writing, so I'm really pleased you do that. We talked a moment ago about your team and the transformation your team have gone through during this pandemic. I mean, like you mentioned, it was, you know, from 16 staff to, you know, cutting that in half to 8. Can you talk me through that sort of evolution? I appreciate there were some highs and some lows of that. And also, you know, the team that stayed on board, you know, the qualities that they've perhaps brought to being, you know, that part of the team that stayed.
Yeah. I think some of the lows were clearly making their colleagues, you know, lose a role, you know, so having to restructure involved, we had which you'll remember, quite a large reception team, and clearly that wasn't allowed because we couldn't social distance. We were literally like this together working, so it just unfortunately it wouldn't work. But do you know what, even going through that process was done in such a beautiful way that there's still contact. So I think that's quite interesting. And we only had one person that was made redundant, but going through that process in an honest and open way, Claire, was really interesting. And then how the team came up with other solutions that maybe would work, which I wouldn't have necessarily thought of. So it was very much a team effort. The fact that they all reduced their hours, there's just a lot of togetherness, you know, with an employee saying, well, look, if we all do this, you know, there wasn't anyone saying, well, I want that. It was very much, what can we all do together? People, I mean, for me, back to the shop floor, back to the front desk, my manager, who was more office based, back to therapy, you know, so a real shift in all of our attitudes.
Yeah.
And a sort of a fight that we're going to survive this together. So I think the highs have been the working together to really make sure it's work, and their flexibility has just been incredible.
And like, yeah, I think it probably brought out some strengths in them, some qualities maybe that they hadn't shared before, or you were aware of.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's just this much more of a together feeling, and they actually don't want it to go back to how it was, which is quite interesting. None of us do. So I think we've evolved through this process, and although it's quite painful for all of us, the result is that we're all happier. We're happier that it's a bit slower. We're happier that it's happened and what we've learned through it. So yeah, they're an amazing team.
And do you think that sort of resilience will continue in the sense of course, we don't know what the future holds, you know, how many more lockdowns will there be in the future? Do you feel that they're just getting stronger every time they need to pivot?
Yeah, I think they are. I think there's no getting away that it is tough, and this lockdown is tougher, although it's shorter, hopefully. You know, we're in a darker season, you know, so there's more isolation, and you know, my partner's going to work every day, and that's hard when you're used to, you know, being involved in a daily activity, and work is such a structure for us all. So I think it makes us appreciate work more, that it can be taken away, and also for us to realise that life is very short, Claire, and we're here for such a short time, and actually what are we doing with that time? So I think it's given us all I feel like the world's reset for us all. And although there's lots of sadness with that, and obviously all the deaths are incredibly sad, but did we all need to reset? Did we need to put the pause button on for a minute and get off this hamster wheel that we were all on? And you know, I'll jump on a flight very regularly. That's what I like to do. But actually to analyse your behaviours and how you did live, and maybe how you're living now. We've got a fire pit in the garden now, and that's so much joy that I wouldn't have even thought about that before.
Yeah, I think we're all battling with that sense of extreme sadness and grief for the loss of life, the intensity of that volume, at the same time as feeling like we needed this moment.
Yeah,
it's a real battle that just, you know, I'm sure plays on many of our minds.
Yes.
And I think that is part of the beauty of when there is loss of life, it should empower you to live yours well. And that's where we need to sort of take some strength and some reassurance from that. So, you know, really appreciate you sharing that. And of course, to keep your team ticking, it probably leads us quite nicely into, you know, I'd love you to impart what you do for staff wellbeing, because you've taken it very seriously from the first day. You know, I met you nearly 3 years ago. You've taken it very seriously, and have always been very mindful. Could you talk me through, you know, some of those things?
I think the lockdown, the first lockdown, how we communicated, I think was really, really key. So whether that's just sending someone a little card or a chocolate bar or a tea bag, you know, so it was a long period of time, and I didn't want any of them to feel that they were alone, to Zoom evenings, and I think that is a really key. So communication, I think, is the key, and when we're in the spa, that's a daily occurrence. So we set up in the morning. It might be, you know, someone does a stretch, I might have a positive quote, we might pick up a product. There's all sorts of different ways that we communicate, but I think that's key. But I think more their health and well-being. If they're not healthy, then we're in a very physical job. That's a challenge. So herbs from Pucker obviously support that. So we provide those. We've had different aims. When we were very busy, we had workstation areas where they could take herbs and have herbal tea. Now, because we're smaller, I tend to give them herbs which will be around the season. So, for instance, at the moment, we're all taking mushroom gold because we are in a physical job and close to people. So we want to protect our immunity. So I think it's always coming up with different things that are going to support that, and celebrating birthdays. And things have had to change, Claire, because we're in a very different situation than we were. But yeah, I think looking after their mental and physical well-being is very important. And I'll sit down with all of them once a month, and we'll have a formal review, and that's their time for us to talk, really. So I think it's a little bit slower. It's a little bit finding out, and that could be anything from someone struggling to breathe in a mask. And having anxiety around that. So I think people think, well, actually the consumer doesn't want to wear a mask, but imagine wearing it all day when you've never done that before. So I think we're much more, I'm probably much softer now, whereas before I'd have gone, just get on with the mask, come on, put it on. It's like, actually, let's talk about how you can breathe, what essential oils can help you, and actually sharing that with our wider community as well. All of those things. Sometimes it's the smallest things that become the most important. Knowing that you're loved and cared for as an employee is really key, I think.
You've created a very special place. I think that people feel, your team feel like they're not just coming to work, they're coming to a safe space. And I think you created that really beautifully. And you did something really lovely online where you had an advent calendar, and you asked people to vote who should open the first day and things like that. So you really did get the community involved. It sounded like a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do. I mean, the guests know the team very well. We it's not that people come and see us once. People come and see us for years. So yes, you're always going to get some transient people that are just coming in to have an experience once, but generally a high percentage of our customers are people who've known for a long time, and they know our strengths, our weaknesses, and actually that's okay.
So can I flick that to you now? Your own self-care. What sort of things are really perhaps maybe have changed? I'm sure your routine looks very different now than it did before. But what things, right now do you, not fail not to do? Basically, you have to do them because it's part of who you are now.
I think there's a lot, Claire. I've realised much more that I am a better person if I do the self-care. So before, self-care would have been the last on my list. Now it's probably the first on my list, which is a very different way of behaving. So I think for me, journaling, my daily journaling, I wouldn't not do. I've got 3 books on the go, and they are a nighttime one, where 3 things that made me smile, and that's gone on for 3 years now. And it's quite interesting when I look back on the same day what I was doing 3 years ago. A gratitude diary for my partner, which is something I read about, and that's quite interesting because I think marriage, living with someone, lockdown, people say that maybe when the person dies, they then realise about that person, and they'll read out a few things that were good about them. But generally, if you ask someone about their partner, they'll say, oh yeah, he doesn't do this or she doesn't do that. There's quite a lot of negativity around that individual, and as a human being, it's quite easy. They didn't put the washing on, or they didn't take the dustbin out. And actually, over time, they can build and build and build. So I started writing this gratitude diary when I met Steve, and it's a daily activity. And I do believe it's a really powerful thing to appreciate. And I do verbalise it as well. So, but not always. But the fact that you have those thoughts about the person you're living with is really powerful. And I think it's a very interesting exercise to do, and I would highly recommend it to anyone. So what are the things that you're grateful for that your partner, and sometimes, Claire, the things, unless you've had them taken away, so eating a meal with someone is a very special thing that people do every day, but actually do they appreciate it. So and then my own gratitude diary. So it sounds like, oh gosh, she's there all morning doing this, but actually no, it's probably 5 minutes, not even that. So
yes,
their
when you
rituals.
talk about writing, you know, the fear is people, oh no, I'm not a writer, you know. But of course, like you say, it's just a moment, it's just a pause.
Yeah.
The only difference is that you're writing down what's going on in here.
Yeah, so I love that. My daily calm meditation. I love Tamara. I think she's an amazing, inspirational lady. It's 10 minutes. It's not a big thing. Joe Wicks. I love this exercise.
I didn't want to bring it up just in case it wasn't still happening.
You know, I love Joe Wicks and Adriana, who's an American lady who does yoga. She's very
yoga with Adrienne, yes. Yeah.
And then you brought me into Heart Space, which is on another planet. So a lady called Teresa, who does a weekly Zoom on a Wednesday night, and that is something else. So I think there's things that I won't move on, and nature, of course, walking. Got a dog that's very sleepy down here. Yeah, so there's a lot that I won't flex on. But equally, Claire, if something's happened, then I think you need to be kind to realise, like, we're going to go back potentially. If Boris announces today, I will be hitting the phones, and there'll be a high level of, right, there's tasks I've got to do. So I think you've got to be
adaptable.
Yeah, adaptable as well. But yeah, there are things that I won't move. My nightly bath won't move. Dead sea salts and my nightly bath. Yes, there's lots of things that I won't move on. But yeah.
Okay, so Claire, with this year, and particularly through the pandemic, learning, educating, what things have you dedicated yourself to during this time?
Firstly, pucker, because I went through the whole academy, which took me ages. So yeah, that was a really interesting task to do. Obviously, I've been trained by yourself for many years, but yeah, actually to physically immerse myself in that was just delightful. I think loads of computer work, you know, it was one of my really weak areas. So that has become still a lot of work to do, but I'm far more confident. If someone says, oh, we're going to get on Teams, Claire, I don't go, oh my God, that's going to take me a week. And to be fair, it does take me a long time to do things. Like the Just Giving page that we just set up recently took me most of the day. But it doesn't matter. I get there eventually. So I think, yeah, it's constant learning. I'm just learning. In fact, I've got an art lesson in a minute. I've never ever would have thought I would have done that. So I don't think it's always about work. It has to be that blend now. So yeah.
Now we're going to get into some quick fire questions very shortly, but just before we do that, could you impart what you believe to be the top tips for customer care? So we've talked about some of them, you know, and certainly, you know, what you do to maintain your community, you know, whether the spa doors are open or closed, you know, what top tips would you give businesses that are absolutely essential to looking after the customer?
I think be kind, be real and be kind is essential, because you never know who is coming through your door and why they're like they are. Very easy to judge, but actually they could have terrible trauma. So we learn that as a, you know, someone might come in and start crying. So kindness is really, and be genuine. You know, it shows if you're not genuine. So have that person's interest at heart, and on an individual basis, not just like 101 people. So a very tailored personal approach, I would say, is essential, and to communicate with our guests, and to deliver a first-class service. I think, you know, more so now than ever, that actually people are going to be having a hard time, and if they come in, they want that experience to be out of the water, so that, you know, they really are remembering it, and you are giving that person yourself for that time without distraction. So they would be my top tips.
Definitely. And that it's essentially your work is guiding, isn't it? It's showing somebody their capacity to relax, you know, the what it takes to or what it feels like to truly feel calm, grounded.
And going the extra mile, Claire, as well. You know, it might be this, you know, if someone's lost, I'll go and pick them up, drive them back. It's just those little things that people will remember. Whether it's a card because they just lost their husband, or whatever it is, but just really trying as much as you can to remember that that's a fellow human being there.
And always asking for feedback. You know, that's something I've seen you do time and time again. You've just been immediately open to feedback to improve.
Oh, definitely. And we share that as a team, and we never, you know, it's always anonymous, but, you know, if someone wants something, then we'll go back and say, you know, someone suggested a different way of having our equipment set up in our lounge, you know, and we did it. And when they came in the next time, oh, you've done it. Of course, it was a great idea. Thank you. So the customers are sharing in that running of our business be part of the business. So yeah.
Amazing. So it's been an amazing conversation. I just want, before you go, just to throw 3 quick fire questions at you. And first of all, I'd like you to sort of showcase us your favourite book.
Yes, this is Oprah Winfrey, which I read every day. What I Know for Sure.
What I Know for Sure. Yes, I've got The Path Made Clear as well.
And every day I just flick it open, and again, it's an inspiration. So yeah.
And you had lots of self-care tips. What one self-care tip do you think everybody should do? Meditate.
Remembering that you won't stop your thoughts.
And what thing do you think you have learned about yourself during the pandemic? You know, what one thing have you deeply learned about yourself?
Patience, not being so critical. 80% is okay. We are not perfect human beings. So yeah, a bit of patience and a bit of reality that I don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And we all make mistakes, Claire, and that's how we learn. So yeah.
Beautiful.
There we go.
On that note, Claire, thank you so much for being part of this project. You know, this is contributing to the Hunger Project, and you know, they're on a mission to end world hunger within our lifetime by 2030. So I really appreciate you being part of this, and you know, really do wish you all the success in the future, and you know, that amazing team. Can't wait to see you.
See you soon. Lots of love. Thanks, Claire.